If you're a Vata dominant person and wondering what is the most ideal yoga for you, then this episode is for you. Hi, this is Zia and this is
Kamana, and welcome to Holistic Nomads TV,
where ancient wisdom and modern science can help you to have more clarity and energy in your life. So everyone is doing yoga nowadays. It seems like kids and grandparents and people from like Western world and the Asian, they are doing yoga. But it seems like many of them just doing yoga in the sense of like, the poses, the asana. And then you often told me about how dangerous yoga can be for those who doesn't understand about it. So can you explain a little bit more about what is yoga? And then, because today episode we're going to talk more about not just the asana, the poses, but also other things. So what is yoga first?
So yoga is union in its biggest sense. It helps unite us together, unite our body with our environment, unite our soul with the larger soul. And I wouldn't necessarily say yoga is dangerous. I wouldn't put that specific word on it, but it is something that needs to be done with caution and awareness when we move into some of the physical postures of asana. The one part of yoga that's used the most across the world is physical poses. In yoga, this is known as asana yoga. There's many other parts of yoga that can be practiced very safely at home with little to no supervision and really never cause any harm for people. Yet when we practice the asana, the physical postures, we need to start looking at what is that person's individually? What's their age? What time of day is it? What's the season? We need to start looking at the physical characteristics of the environment that they're in and their body. And Ayurveda has ways to explain that balanced point of view.
Yeah. So when I say dangerous earlier, it's because there are so many people in this world that experience accident.
Yeah.
Because of, let's say they do yoga on YouTube and then of course the teacher there is super flexible and then so people at home just practicing on themselves and then injure themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of chance for injury within the modern practices of yoga if they're not done with a greater degree of self-awareness, self-respect. Listening to your own body's limitations is a key part of yoga. It's not about can we get into that perfect pose. It's about how aware can we be in our body and mind while attempting to expand and better ourselves with certain practices, including physical postures.
Which is why, was it David Frawley that mentioned if you want to study yoga, then you also need to study Ayurveda? Was it him?
Yeah, he says specifically if you want to study yoga as either exercise or therapy, then we should study Ayurveda because Ayurveda is the system that is more associated with things like exercise, therapy, the physical body, and they give us a way to individualize and make asana more specific for one person.
Okay, so at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that for those who are Vata dominant dosha, then this episode is for them. But actually, it's not just for people that is dominant in Vata dosha, because as you mentioned earlier, it's about the time, season, place, and then the individual. So before we go to the individual, can you explain the three other characters?
Yeah, so basically with these four is how Ayurveda is continually adding up and going, what's right for this person? So we look at the time of the day, we look at the season, we look at the place that they're in, and we look at the individual characteristics of the person. So let's look at time first, and we're just going to relate it to Vata. The Vata times of the day 2 to 6 p.m. roundabout. So that's morning before sunrise and afternoon before sunset. This 2 to 6 p.m. period is where we'll need to balance Vata the most. Then we look at the time season. We look at the season. The season for Vata is the autumn to winter. So it's where we're letting go, it's the leaves dropping, it's this cooling down, nourishing, rejuvenating period for the body is the Vata season. Then we look at the place. What is the environment? Is it a windy place with lots of disturbances? Is it a high mountain altitude place? This could be a place where more Vata is dominant. And then last one, we look at the individual. We look at the actual person that might be doing the practices. And there's two ways to look at the individual. There's one that's their birth constitution. So how were they when they're born? What's their genetic ratio of Vata, Pitta and Kapha? And how are they now? That's their present imbalanced state of Vata, Pitta and Kapha. What have they accumulated over their life? So these things are important to assess because we're going to talk about yoga to balance Vata, yet in the bigger picture, how much of these qualities, characteristics, practices will depend on how much Vata is present. So if it's the time of the day that is Vata, 2 to 6, and the winter, cold, dry winter, and it's up in high altitude mountain place, and the person is a Vata constitution from birth, and their present imbalance is Vata, then they will need to apply this in a much higher degree. Maybe 90% or more of their day, week practice will need to dominate these principles.
Or those people who live in the city.
City, that's another Vata place. Lots of activity that's going on inside a city. Yeah.
Me, living in the city, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing, you often mention a lot about the importance of understanding the qualities. And the first quality that relates to this Vata is?
So I've tried to make it as potent and specific for the YouTube as possible by just choosing 3 of my most important qualities to balance Vata with yoga. So the first one is calming. Vata tends to be more in movement and stimulated and lots of mental activity, so we need to try and calm their mind and their body as much as possible. The best way to do that is with practices that relate to the breath. The more we can connect to the breath, slow the breath down, use deep nasal breathing throughout the whole of the yoga practice will really help to calm, slow the mind, slow down the nervous system, and enable the body to be a lot more Vata balancing.
Yeah, and then the next qualities is something about my notes. Building and strengthening.
The next quality is building and strengthening. So Vata has the light quality that's present in it, which generally makes its body more lighter and gets rid of mass quite easily. It'll break down mass and lose weight. They'll need to focus on this building and strengthening quality even more than the other doshas. So doing practices that help to build the muscles and the bones, strengthen conditioning type exercises, squats, push-ups. They'll need to be aware because they can be a little bit deficient, that they don't just wear the body out with that, but it has to be part of their practice. A little bit of strength and conditioning is really important for Vata.
Yeah, I can relate to how challenging it is because it's not my, dominant qualities of strength and conditioning. I would like just to do something that is fun and, random.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I remember you often told me in my own practice to first relate to the first one that is calming, is to watch my breath when I do this strength and conditioning, because often when I see people, they're like going, and that's also something that you want to avoid, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. If we obey the first principle, calming quality, and we do that into strength and conditioning, we're able to do our strength and conditioning in a way where the principle of calming and the slow breath guides how intense we can go with our strength and conditioning before we're starting to stress the nervous system.
Yeah. The third quality is rhythmic and flowing.
So Vata tends to get imbalanced when there's erraticness, when there's lots of change. And so when we have a rhythm, there's something for the mind to follow. It's like the rhythm of opening the arms with an inhale and the rhythm of exhaling and bringing the arms together again. And then what's the next movement? Oh, it's the same thing again. And this repetition and rhythm really helps to balance Vata. So if we can make their asana practice into gentle rhythms and repetitions that they repeat multiple times. And it's okay to add new things to it, but every time we add something, repeat it for a period of time. Let it really settle into the nervous system and add another piece. Not just change, next movement, next movement, next movement. Not so balancing for Vata.
It's really interesting coming from a personal experience when it comes to rhythm, or can you also relate that with repetition?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's so hard to do at the beginning because your mind, at least my mind, just can't handle to like, oh my God, I just want to do something different. But after a while, like you hit certain point and then you realize, oh, actually this repetition is good for me. So if you're Vata dominant or have some Vata imbalance in your life currently, you just need to push that through until you find that repetition is amazing for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll get the body response in time that will motivate you to do more.
Next one, besides talking about the qualities, there's something called direction. What does this mean?
So in the school that I work with, Ayurvedic, we look at directions that are most important for the doshas. So I've tried to really summarize this down for the YouTube. In the Ayurvedic school, it will be a range of different directions that are based on meridians. So we're looking at where are the dominant channels, both energy channels and physical fascia tissue channels in the body that are affected by the doshas. And then we make movements that tend to use and balance those channels the most. So in the potent version for YouTube, it's spiraling and circling type movements. So if I spiral my arm open like this, thumb upwards, I'm doing an external spiral through the shoulder joint here. If I spiral the arm back all the way around and twist it in this direction, now the palm is facing upwards in the opposite direction, I'm doing an internal spiral movement that happens. So we see this a lot within the body, these sorts of eagle, Utkatasana type things. We can do them with the legs through spiraling movements as well. So these circling, spiraling type movements are the most important to be aware of for Vata.
Why that is? Is it related with the joint? We're going to talk about that later.
So yeah, the circling and spiraling does relate to the joints to some degree, because when we circle and spiral the joints, we get extra circulation through this area, and Vata often tends to block the circulation at the joints, both the circulation of energy and blood and fluids. Also, the circling and spiraling relates to the general body as a whole. This specifically relates to the meridians. These are like Chinese meridians, energy channels of flow, or if we look at modern anatomy relationships, fascia channels in the body. So through the shoulders, we have the lung and the large intestine meridian, which relate primarily to Vata in the upper body. And that's open through what I've just explained, the thumb facing upwards and then the thumb turning all the way down and the palm facing upwards in this downward spiral. And the kidney and the bladder meridian run through the legs, and they also open and close the most as we get a little bit of this spiraling type movement, like a Trikonasana, a triangle pose of the front leg, or a forward bend where we're really curving and spiraling the back body forward in as well. Now, this is a short summary into that, but in the bigger picture, yes, the movements relate to the meridians, and they also have a relationship to the element. The water element is circling and spiraling. It's more soft and lubricating these types of movement. They generally don't wear the body out as much as like fast, straight line movements or serious superior movements. These are more intensive for the body than a circling, spiraling type movement.
Okay, so now that we all know physical activities also related to our mental state, so is there any particular things that we need to be aware of when it comes to doing yoga to our mind?
Yeah, when I think of yoga, I think mostly of the mind, more than I do of asana. My experience in the many different paths of yoga has shown me that there is a huge amount of information in the yoga tradition to support the workings of the mind and uniting it with a bigger, higher principle. And the practices within yoga I feel are incomplete unless we really bring in those mental intentions to it. So in regards to Vata, again, I've potentized it to 3 specific mental intentions. The first one is discipline. And this is an intention that a lot of Vatas will likely have friction against, will rebel against. They'll be like, I want freedom, I want to do whatever I want.
Sorry, that's exactly my intention, to have freedom and
yeah, see, she's in the other way. Whereas really the Vata needs discipline. The Vata needs to go, no, I'm not just going to go based on whatever I want and whatever I think I like at this moment, but what really is going to be best here. It's not about the new idea that I just had, it's about the discipline to show up again and do the same practice. So how can we invite more of that into our body? How can we go, yeah, I can be so disciplined within my practice, within the way in which I'm doing it. The second mental intention relates to love. Vata often feel alone or separate, and how can we bring in more of this love, this happiness, things from the Taoist tradition like the inner smile, where we're bringing this love, smiling compassion into different organs of the body right through the system. This could be another mental intention. Our third one for Vata is grounded. They really need to ground their energy down. A lot of their energy rises up into the head and gets really scattered and up here, and it's going, it's up, it's up, it's up. And they need to focus on how can I keep the energy moving down towards my feet. So with their mental intention, they keep bringing the energy down towards the legs, down towards the feet throughout as much of the yoga practice as possible.
So what about those flying yoga, aerial or whatever like that?
It can be balancing for Vata if they are the person being based, they're on the ground. It's really grounding to their legs and building strength inside their legs, being the base for acro yoga and those sorts of flying yogas. And if you are the person on top, then you wouldn't want that to be a large part of your practice. It would be a small part with not so many poses, limited to like 3 of the nice spine lengthening poses and not so much of the really balanced out there active poses.
Which is why my tendency as Vata, I love to be the flyer.
Yeah,
actually,
exactly.
I'll always be the
always
flyer.
be the flyer.
What base?
Yeah, not about grounded for me, I'm going out there.
Okay, so the next part we are going to talk about the focus area of the body, because if you've been following us, watching our YouTube videos for a while, Kimana often talk about that even the dosha has dominant areas inside our body. So for Vata, you said it's from hips down. For Pitta is around this belly, and then for Kapha, chest up. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, but that's just big generalization, right? And then there's also specific organs, specific areas like joint related to Vata, which we're going to talk about this. So can you share the first, what is that, body area? Is that what it is?
Yeah, body area, that's right.
What is the first one?
Yeah, so I've potentized this into just 3 rather than looking at so many. Legs is the most important for Vata. They need to focus their yoga practice on the legs. If it's a meditation practice, they need to look at where their legs are positioned and are their legs in a comfortable, grounded spot where their spine can sit heavy earth on the ground. If it's doing asana and physical postures, you activate the legs, lunges, squats, things that work with the legs a lot. That's the first and primary one.
Next area.
Next is the hips. So the hips and the pelvis, this region of the body, tends to store a lot of Vata. The seat of Vata is the colon, and the colon sits inside the pelvis here and wraps through this region. So this lower belly, pelvis, and activities that work with the pelvis. So we're looking at cat and cow and moving the hips and the pelvis, making sure we get dynamic movement through the hips and the pelvis, activating the core, the muscles that sit deep inside, the pelvic floor muscles, all of that area of the pelvis, really important to balance Vata.
And then the third one is what we already mentioned a lot, is the joint.
Joints. Vata tends to build up in the joints and it inhibits circulation when it builds up there. So spiraling movements of the joints and practices which focus on stabilizing and strengthening the joints are also really important.
And the joint is something that I need to share from my own personal experience, because every time I do joint rolling, I will straight away have this clear mucus from my nose, like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's so very interesting because it's just only when I roll my joints, and after that it just disappears. So what you say to me is that yes, joint rolling is important for everyone generally, but also especially for Vata, and especially when, for me, like as an example, there's some things that feels released during that, so that's even more important to be paid attention to.
Absolutely, yeah. Vata tends to get things stuck in the joints, so they really get the most benefit, and they may get immediate results, like Zia said, because Vata tends to have quicker results, quicker imbalances, and quicker results in their recovery of imbalances too.
So we already talked a little bit before about the type of the poses, the asanas, as an example of specific areas. Can you share us a little bit more of the asanas, the poses that will be specifically ideal for Vata?
So again, I've focused it to 3 specific. The first one is Sukhasana, known as the easy pose. It's basically a cross-legged position that you can be comfortable within. That's going to be different for each person. It's not going to look the same. The main principles here are get your hips higher than your knees. So use cushions, bolsters, whatever you need to do to get your hips higher than your knees. And try and get your knees in a place where they're comfortable but as close to the ground in a nice sort of triangle position to your hips. Then get that triangle of the hips higher, knees grounded to give you a stable base on. So if that really doesn't work for your body, then you could also sit in a chair. That can be your Sukhasana, your easy pose. If possible, try and get that triangle base. Understanding this pose enables us to balance Prana Vata, which lives up here in the head and controls the rest of the body. It's somewhat related to the brain and the central nervous system. And also to balance Apana Vata, which lives down here in the pelvis, relates to elimination, detoxification, separating of urine and things that we want to keep in the body, separating of feces. And this pose enables us to have an awareness position, Sukhasana, easy upright spine, where these 2 energies can be balanced, guiding the body from the top and detoxification from the bottom. So that's our first one, Sukhasana. Our second pose is Utkatasana. And Utkatasana is like a squat pose, and this pose is very warming. It builds a lot in the legs. It tends to strengthen the knees when done in proper alignment with the feet facing forward, good internal actions of the body applied, and it lengthens the spine. So we've got a little bit of a forward bend in like a squat, and then we've got a lengthening of the whole of the upper spine and a little bit of a back bend. It's a really good strengthening pose, particularly useful to be able to build strength in the legs and the knees, really important for Vata, and warms up the rest of the body. Our third pose for Vata is Savasana. Savasana is lying on the back, and in this fully relaxed pose where we can really let go and surrender to gravity, we start to access parts of the nervous system in their deepest relaxed state that we couldn't in any other pose. So it's important for all Vata people to be horizontal at a couple of points over the day, not to just power through and keep doing things, to lay in Shavasana, even if it's only for just 5 minutes at a few points in the day where you can. That laying down in complete Shavasana lets all of the muscles turn off, all of the nervous system turn off, and take a little scan through the body and see if you can check, is every part of my body fully relaxed? My eyes, my root of my tongue, my fingers, every part fully surrendering to gravity. That's our 3 poses for Vata.
That sounds very easy when it comes to like the Shavasana, but in reality, because I'm as Vata, have a tendency to feel agitated or not relaxed basically.
Yeah.
You think you're relaxed, but I'm still holding my fingers in that position.
Yeah, it's really common for people to not know when they still have one of their muscles on.
Yes.
So if something feels a little bit tense or weird when you're in that position, it's probably because the body is not fully relaxed on that side. And try to breathe into that, and with each exhale, see if you can ask the body, how could I relax even more? How could I relax even more? How could I relax even more? And just keep letting that soften through the tissue.
I think that's a very important sentence there that I need to highlight. Instead of like telling ourselves, I am relaxed. Yes,
Yeah.
I am relaxed. But like actually use questions like, how can I relax even more? And that's, for me, that will instantly actually make myself relax.
Yeah.
So the next one is the other part of yoga that is for common people doesn't seem like yoga, because when they talk about yoga, they just very focus on the asana, on the poses, and that is the meditation and the pranayama. So can you explain a little bit more about these two before we go through these three things again?
Yeah.
Why is it even important to do meditation? Of course, that's already clear, but about pranayama, why is it even important to do it?
Let's first look at meditation. Our mind is designed to have still times where it releases its stored information. That's just the base level of meditation. So when we focus the mind upon one thing, it doesn't have to compute new data all the time, new things coming in. And every time it has to compute new data, it's like, I've got so much to do. Imagine it a computer working away, new sensory information, new things coming in, new, lots of sensory data having to be computed by the brain. Whereas when we focus the mind upon one repetitive task or something we've done before, and we can just be fully focused on that, our mental power is able to process the old. And a lot of that old relates to memories, experiences, desires that will hold us back from being united with oneness, from being fully present in the moment. So our final goals of meditation move into this merging with this divine being and less individual identification. And many different religious practices, if not all, have some form of meditation practice within them that decreases this egoic response of me, my mind, and all the things I've experienced, and increases our oneness response. So meditation, important practice for all people. Then we look at pranayama. Pranayama is a breath practice, and there's many different types of breath practices. And in its deeper meaning, it means the ability to move vital life force energy to different parts of the body, to either control and bring that vital life force energy into one area, or to liberate and expand and build that life force energy across the body. And in the Vedic tradition, they believe the breath is intimately linked to our ability to move that energy in the body. So this meditation and pranayama is one of the most used paths within yoga. Traditional yoga, it was much more common for practitioners to use meditation and pranayama than they would asana or physical postures. I'm not downtoning asana or physical postures. I think they are great and awesome and provide great therapy for our body as well as our mind. And we should also make sure we include meditation and pranayama into our practices.
So pranayama, also you mention often as it's affecting our energy body, our meridian channel systems.
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize that because we already talk a lot about this topic on meridian channels on the previous episodes. So I'm just going to give a link below so that you can check it out and learn further about that. So now let's move on to the three things, example of the practice that relates to meditation and pranayama. And the first one is Anulom Vilom.
Anulom Vilom is the Sanskrit word for what we now often call alternate nostril breathing. And this is a practice that is used to balance Vata and descend energy. Anulom Vilom means to properly descend Vata downwards, to stop it from rising up here in the head. And when we do this practice of alternate nostril breathing, we tend to balance the left and the right hemispheres. These are proven studies from neuroscientists at multiple universities around the world. When we breathe in through one nostril, we stimulate the nerves that are coming out of the epithelial cells here and into the air, We stimulate those and we stimulate a certain part of the brain because it's connected to this side. Then we exhale through the other nostril and we stimulate the other side's nostrils. We inhale again, stimulating this side of the brain. We exhale through the left side, we stimulate this side. As we do that back and forth with our left and our right hemispheres, it tends to balance the brain. And then we also are able to consciously use our energy to inhale and build prana and life force through the whole left side of my body here, and then on the other side exhale and cleanse out through the right side of my body. So this is a pranayama practice that can be very beneficial for Vata, and you'll be able to find it on YouTube in multiple different places. It's also in detail in our How to Balance Vata course.
So the next one is Ajapa Japa mantra.
Ajapa Japa is a practice of mantra where we use one seed syllable mantra and we resonate it from the base of the spine and we rise it up through the body. So these could be any of the seed syllable. These are one single syllable mantras. That's what a seed syllable refers to. So it could be like Om, and we resonate with the start of the sound, and Om is technically Aum. So it starts with an A at the beginning. We resonate the A at the base of the spine. Ah, the middle of the sound comes upwards and rises through the chest. Oh, and the last part of the sound resonates at the lips, and the lips come together. We should feel a vibration rise through the head when we do this last bit. There's so many different seed syllable mantras. Ideally, they should be prescribed to you as a specific one. So if you're not familiar with one, the ones that I'm going to give as generalized is Om. Om. And then you inhale again. And you start again. Om. You go as long as you can with that Om, and then inhale again. Just keep repeating that practice with the eyes closed. That's one. The other one is So Hum. Inhale with So. There's not much sound at all there. It's just the sound of the breath and the visualization of this So coming in. And then we exhale with Hum. Ha. So is the inhale, and you just repeat in that practice. So this is Ajapa Japa, using a mantra and resonating through the whole spinal column, the whole energy channel of the central body.
Next one is my favorite.
Favorite.
Yoga
You get to
Nidra.
do it laying down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like tired in the afternoon, napping probably good, but there's even better than napping, and that is Yoga Nidra. So what is Yoga Nidra?
So studies have shown at Harvard University that the relaxation response, similar to meditation, is more powerful than sleep. It recuperates the body more than sleep does. They can still need sleep. We still need at least 4 hours of sleep each night. But if the person is meditating a lot over the day, it's more powerful and more rejuvenative, and they can have less overall sleep. So this Yoga Nidra practice is known as a yogic sleep. Nidra means sleep. And it's done laying on your back, so you're in that Savasana position that we talked about before to balance Vata. And in that position, you're led through a guided meditation. And because Vata's mind tends to scatter a lot and go into lots of thoughts quite easily, ideas are their strength, it's really beneficial for them to have led meditations. It can be much easier for them to be led through a journey in their mind. So in a Yoga Nidra, often the practitioner or the audio will lead you through a journey through your body, focusing on relaxing the eyes, the tongue, the root of the tongue, right through the whole system, and then lead you on a little visualization afterwards. So these Yoga Nidras can be downloaded from all over the internet. We also have them in our How to Balance Vata course. Really beneficial practices for Vata, and especially in the afternoon Vata period, sort of 2 to 6 p.m, where the body's energy levels naturally drop. It's a great time to put in a Yoga Nidra practice at that time of the day.
Now we're coming to an end of this class. I want to wrap it up with saying that it is a lot of information that we share, and it's just actually even just a surface on how to balance Vata through yoga, meditation, and pranayama. And this is also important to say because often people ask me of like, Zia, do you teach yoga? I was like, no. Or do you go to yoga class? No as well, because I do it at home and my practice is pretty long. Not just the asana, but like from the meditation, from the mantra, from the visualization and the asana itself and the strength and conditioning. It's so long that I often forget to have a shower, honestly, because I'm already too hungry. But anyway, and all of that, I personally, want to say thank you to you for your opportunity that you gave me by teaching and sharing all of this knowledge that you share at your school, the Ayurvedic, especially the 200 hours. So I will personally, okay, this might be biased because he's my husband, but seriously, I will highly recommend for those who want to join and learn about how to use yoga, therapy, Ayurveda, and bodywork to study about themselves, to learn about themselves, and actually help others at the same time, holistically. I think that will be the biggest difference.
Yeah, it's a really amazing course, the 200 hour. I created it, so it must be. No, I've co-created it with a group of different teachers, and I've really looked at what are some of the best home healing practices for people to apply. Yeah. And we've gone through a little fraction, as Zia says, of how we could balance Vata with yoga, and yet this little fraction could be broken into tiny pieces, and that's the way that you learn. Zia has had the luxury to be able to have a good amount of time in the morning to apply to practice, and to be able to build things from me over a 4 to 5 year period and building a larger practice. Yet you at home, I want you to start with the smallest little piece. If it's just, I'm going to do 2 yoga asanas and I'm just going to pick those and get that into a habit. If you put it in how the order I said, the 3 asanas were Sukhasana, a sitting posture, Utkatasana, a squat type posture, and Savasana, a laying type posture. Just with those 3, you could already build the beginning of an asana practice. Integrate one of the pranayamas the next week and just keep building up slowly and forming these habits in your life. And then when you do have the days off where you can have a really nice long practice, you can bring all of those tools together into one incredibly balancing home practice.
This is last thing that I want to highlight as well about implementing this to become a habit, because Vata have this tendency, speaking from experience, is when we're excited for something, we just want to go for it, and because we excited with the ideas, but then we have the most difficult personality when it comes to do the repetition and applying it daily things. So Vata people out there, especially if you have imbalance with Vata, which is make it even more difficult, like Kimana said, just choose one of the practice that we shared here, the easiest one, and then just do it every single day until you don't need to push yourself to install it, and then after that add another thing, and then add another thing, add another thing, and then in 4 years time, like me, you have 2-hour practice.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
Yeah. Anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I'm just really happy to share the topic of yoga therapy with you. I think it's a subject that is so important because it relates to practices we can do at home ourselves. It relates to the self-healing of your own lifestyle. And they're the things I'm so passionate about. I'm passionate about sharing the knowledge so you can change your own life. So I really hope that you don't just listen and watch this and discard it to the side. Start applying this in your life, because I know it's your practices that you do for yourself that is going to change your life for the better. If you're interested to help others heal holistically, or just wanting to learn more about your own self-care, then check out the programs I've co-created on Ayurvedic.com. We brought together some of the world's best health experts, teaching people what I consider to be the 6 most important branches of holistic healing. Hope to share with you again in the future. Until then, all the best.
Now, theory without practice is wasteful, because hearing leads to forgetting, teaching leads to remembering, and applying leads to mastering. That's why we will encourage you to leave a comment below and share one learning insight from this video. Also, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you will be the first to hear about our future educational videos. And for more resources on health and healing, check out our website holisticnomads.com. There you'll find articles, quizzes on Ayurveda, loads of free downloads, and of course, our future events and courses. Thank you so much for watching. We hope it's been beneficial for you. Hope to see you next week. Bye!
Yeah, I'm ending it with talking about love. Love's good for love. Love makes you fill up with nourishment. It makes all the organs really happy.